Cafe Anyway. Here we are. Cafe.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 2597, 2597. Mike Matthews here at Cafe Anyway, somewhere in
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Podcastro Valley. What a voice. Singing is so great. And I guess I should make the choice and say, don't sing at the beginning of the podcast. But how can you bring yourself not to sing with such a lively, wonderful song behind us?
Mike's Daily Podcast.
That's the name of the song, the Mike's Daily Podcast song, and it's Mike Matthews. Hey, it's good to be here.
Mike's
today
Daily
at Cafe Anyway.
Podcast.
Somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on Earth. And today, we're looking at the world through our wonderful eyes. That's so clear. As a motorcycle drives by Cafe Anyway, and we realize Cafe Anyway is not soundproofed, and that's okay. So Apple has a savings account now. There's basically an Apple Bank. And yes, if you have any iPhones or other types of Apple products, I guess you can use this. And it has a 4.15% interest rate that you can get. Now that looks pretty good. I've done a little bit of research, and it turns out so far it looks like 4.8%. If you just want a regular savings account, seems to be the best, the highest. So I don't know, Apple's trying to compete with a lot of online banks. Speaking of online, according to YouGov.com, that's U as in YOU, only 9% of men have 1,000K or more in savings. Only 9% and only 4.5%.
And here's today's podcast picture
of women. That's according to YouGov.com. So people aren't saving that much. It's a lot of... That's... Wow. So... And the average 401k balance plunged 20% in 2022. What? 20%? I don't look at my 401k. I don't. I'm afraid of that sort of thing. Because I lived through 2008 and that was painful. So, hey... The podcast picture is not from 2008. It is from recently, last week, I think. And a place I walked with the late, great Basil the Boxer. We had walked at this particular location before. Years and years ago. It's in Pleasanton. In a nice little housing area where they've got this beautiful... They've created this huge green space, which also acts as a creek when the water... when we get a lot of water like we have lately. And so it's a drainage. And you know, our hills are starting to get a little bit browner, which is interesting because we just had all this rain, but it's finally starting to get a little browner. And meanwhile, you're hearing about all the flooding happening, or is it potentially about to happen, with all that snow melt that is starting to liquefy. Oh, I saw Frozen finally. What? Isn't that movie 10 years old? It is. And I finally watched it with my lovely lady friend.
The front panel will close automatically. Please remain seated.
As far as, okay, so far I'm liking probably what's ahead. Between the three Disney movies, Frozen, Encanto, and Coco, which, by the way, did you notice all three are one-word titles? It's not Gone with the Coco, it's just Coco. So, I guess that's a Disney formula. And all three of those are musicals, aren't they? Don't they sing in Coco? They sing in Encanto, that's for sure. Oh, Moana! There's another one-worder. Wow, that is a definite thing. Okay. Anyways, Cafe Anyways. what did I think of Frozen? Well, it was kind of nice to see all the scenic views and the snow and Idina Menzel's amazing voice. And Kristen Bell also sings in that. She sounds really good. But the beginning, there were a couple of really lame songs, and then it took off with Let It Go, and then the song with the trolls was kind of fun. And at that point, I was sold. I was invested. I'm like, let's go. I guess most movies you're invested about halfway through, unless you're totally not, and you said, why did I waste all my time? I want my money back. But I got through that, and I enjoyed it. And I thought at the very end, let's see. Oh, yeah, the guy who turned out to suddenly... Oh, wait, spoilers. Okay, well, there's a twist somewhere towards the end. I guess everybody's seen it by now, but there's a twist, and okay, that was kind of neat. But I really liked the reindeer, and I could not believe how I liked Olaf. Speaking of the song where he's singing about how he wants to be in the sun and go to the beach and see what it's like when water gets hot, when snow, he has no concept that he's going to melt, and just such a positive influence personality, I should say. It was interesting that most of the characters, most of the actors that did the singing, they came from Broadway or came from big Tony Award winning projects before hitting Frozen. Is that a thing Disney does now? I don't know, although that movie is 10 years old. Speaking of Apple, which we mentioned a few sentences ago, GM has made the decision to ditch Apple CarPlay. Android Auto sparks backlash. GM intended to phase out Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on its future EVs. Drivers want the option the technology offers, which is to project their iPhone screen onto their vehicle's infotainment display. As we go outside a cafe anyway, where we bring a Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley.
Anyway.
The last place on earth. For everything from accessing contacts to apps. Yes, that's true. I rented a magnification, or one of those boxy cars. Forget what it was. Back in October of last year, as we drove up to Shasta. And yeah, it immediately, once I let it immediately paired with my Android phone. And everything was there, like that was on the phone, was on the screen. Instead, GM is going to offer a built-in infotainment experience on its future electric vehicles that offers versions of Google Maps, Google Assistant, Spotify, and more. Foregoing a lot of Apple stuff, because obviously that's all Google stuff except for Spotify. Harsh reaction across social media immediately happened, with some people saying they will not buy a vehicle that doesn't offer Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, prompting some car shopping experts to predict that GM may lose customers. And the tech writer Walt Mossberg said, everybody hates GM's decision to kill Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for its EVs. I think it's a huge blunder. Well, I don't know if he speaks for all of us. He sure has he's kind of cocky to think that. I mean, really, come on. We can all think for ourselves, can't we? Make our own decisions if we hate him or not. Hate General Motors. So you might be listening to this on the 26th. If you are, it is National Pretzel Day. One of my favorite Steely Dan songs is Pretzel Logic. Dun, 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 dun.
Where did you get those shoes?
But yes, pretzels are delicious, and me I have a lot of German heritage in me. I have to love pretzels, especially with the wonderful mustard, the German mustard. Oh, dip it in there; it's so good. But it's not really satisfying. pretzels. You eat them, and you've inhaled all those calories, but at the end of the day, you're like, it didn't really make me as happy as, let's say, eating real food. But there you go, pretzels.
You will travel into the incredible universe.
It's also National South Dakota Day. I don't know what South Dakota does on this particular day. If they go completely crazy and celebrate, dance to the music on National South Dakota Day. I would love to go to South Dakota. I have not been yet. That's my plan. Someday I would love to go. It's also National Help a Horse Day. I guess horses need help. You basically have to, if you're going to board a horse, you have to have land. You have to have a facility that's able to hold on to, keep a horse fenced in, shelter a horse. You have to be able to feed the horse. There's a lot involved with a horse. You don't want the horse to get too heavy. I talked to a horse owner a week ago who was telling me, hey, literally, they eat a lot of hay. And also, with all the green grass these days, he's got to be careful that his horse doesn't eat too much, because otherwise he could gain so much weight that he hurts his legs. His legs can't hold up all that extra weight. And he starts to get limb issues. And if the horse goes lame, can't walk anymore. He says that is a huge body with an intestinal tract that's giant, and having it just lay down for a long period of time with all kinds of health issues take place, and the horse will perish. So I guess we all should help a horse, because horses help us. Oh, and one more thing. It is Stop Food Waste Day on the 26th. Today, if you're listening to this on the 26th. Yes, stop food waste. I wonder what are some good rules of thumb for stopping food waste. If there's any sort of plan you can take, I would say do inventory on your refrigerator. Go in there, see what's going on in there. Oh, there's actually a Stop Food Waste Day website. Well, and you can take the pledge to try and stop food waste. Prevent food waste by storing food optimally, making use of every edible part of the ingredient, and planning meals ahead of time. That is so difficult, to plan meals ahead of time. But yeah, then you know exactly what you have. Making use of every edible part. A lot of people chuck, they used like I just want this one piece of the, what's something okay, so I'm one of those weirdos when I eat squash, when I eat zucchini. I've been known to eat the little stump thing that were connected to the vine. I'll eat that little part. I don't know if that's bad for me or... Here's one. Oh, this is something people do all the time. With broccoli, they just cut off the florets and they don't do anything with the big long stalk. But you can eat that. I used to eat it all the time. Actually, I don't... I buy the broccoli that's already chopped because it's frozen at Costco. But I used to eat the stalk. You should try to inspire others to waste less and repurpose more. And it says here, repurpose food by redistributing any surplus to your local community or giving a second life to ingredients that most commonly go to waste. The organization I talked about yesterday that I saw at the library during Earth Day, they're called Forester.org, and that's Forester without an E at the end. Forester. And they were talking about how what they do is they do the gleaming, where they find someone's tree. They get permission from the owner of the tree, but if you have a tree, for example, that you got a ton of fruit on it and you're like, I'm never going to pick the fruit off of this, you call them or you go to their website and they'll go and they'll grab the fruit and they redistribute it to people that need it. And that's great because there's so many nutrients in that fruit, in that tree. that you could be eaten and help others that are, for example, vitamin C lacking and getting scurvy and all that. So fascinating. I'm just kind of gleaning through their cookbook, and they have a coconut parsnip soup. Ooh. And then let's see, the writing is awfully small, but they let you zoom in, and it says you can use parsnips, which I have never cooked with parsnips. There you go. You can make parsnip chips. This is a great but simple recipe that uses a lot of vegetables from the week and uses parsnip skins as delicious crunchy chips. It's best served with garlic toast. For the toast, this writer says, I use leftover frozen burger buns from a recent family barbecue, but you can use bread that is going stale instead of just chucking it. By the way, don't just chuck bread. There are plenty of ducks that would love that bread. So many times I see cute ducks and I'm like, oh, I didn't save any bread for the ducks. For the vegetable stock, this writer says, I save up various trimmings from the week and keep them ready in a pot in the fridge. Oh, that's brilliant. Try and avoid strong flavored vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, or any other that leak color like beetroot and red onions. For this recipe, I used brown onion, carrot trim, tomato ends, garlic, celery tops, and mushroom trimmings. Here's another thing. People they get rid of, throw away, they waste celery as soon as it goes soft. But you can still cook that. You can still put it in a crock pot and cook it down. It'll still be delicious because when it's cooked, it doesn't matter if it's all mushy. Well, I guess I don't know if celery goes poisonous at some point, but if it loses its crunch, there's still ways to use it. Okay, fascinating. Stop Waste Food Day. Stop food waste. Look who's here right now, outside a cafe anyway. Hi, Mike. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How y'all doing?
It's a disgruntled fiddle player. Tell you what.
What?
What I hate is people that eat fast food, because a lot of times they take the container that the fast food came in and they just throw it on the street, throw it on the sidewalk, throw it wherever I'm walking. I don't like that. Tell you what.
What?
They should stop.
Yeah, see, so many reasons to hate fast food. That should be another day. Hate fast food day, and it's bad for you. Clogs up your arteries. You don't want that. We want Disgruntled Fiddle Player to live a long, long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to go help a horse because Nilly's here.
Oh, Nilly, help a horse day. And look who else is here.
Hello, Mike. I make the delicious root beer. Have some right now.
Wow. That root beer looks amazing. Okay. Whoops. Yum.
Drink it right now. I'll cut you.
I just drank some. It was really good. Thank you for not cutting me. You know, next show it's going to be the wonderful Madame Rootabeg of Valentino and Bison Bentley. The last podcast was called Ballast. And I forgot that there's that also we call ballast, the thing in fluorescent lights. And I've never been able to figure out how to change a ballast. But, Rocky the cat is here. So what I'm trying to tell you is that is something, as I named the last podcast ballast, that I realized I am lacking. So the name of this podcast is probably going to be called Lacking because it just came to me. So we'll call it that, and hopefully you found it imaginative and wonderful and fun and informative. And a big thank you to a lot of that financial news I pulled from the podcast Rob Black and Your Money. I produced that podcast, so. And, one thing I forgot. Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran. Did you ever think that song sounded like Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On? And there's that lawsuit happening right now saying, oh, yeah, he copied it. That da-da-da. Well, Let's Get It On. That's a classic. That's like a... You dance to that in a fun way. Thinking Out Loud is a ballad. It's one of those Ed Sheeran ballads where he was really hot at the moment with kind of a dance folk sound. What was that one? The A-Team song that he did, more of a strumming thing. And then he had that bass line. Now, according to Rolling Stone, it says that the lawyer claimed that Ed Sheeran confessed to copying Marvin Gaye with a concert mashup. A lawyer defending the estate of a co-writer of Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On said he had smoking gun evidence that Ed Sheeran took elements of the 70s classic on his 2014 hit single Thinking Out Loud during his opening statement. He made the remarks today. He said he would be showing concert footage where Sheeran merged the two songs during a show, describing the mashup as a confession. Wow. That makes life very difficult for musicians, doesn't it? Because how many times... I saw Crowded House back in the 80s, and they performed Don't Dream It's Over, but before they went into it, they played the Lou Reed song. Hey Babe, Take a Walk on the Wild Side. Yeah, neither of those songs seem in any way comparable. They're both wildly different, but there's a kind of a bass line that matches both songs, apparently. So this just makes art all kinds of... You got to be careful, got to watch your back. And the guy from the Black Crowes, he once said it this way. He said, when you get really popular, you have to pay a popularity tax at some point. There is weird stuff that comes after you. He went through his own. I think there was someone in his family that sued him, or probably a copyright infringement case for one of his songs. It's terrible that musicians have to go through it. Musicians are usually the ones that I've known. They're pretty sensitive. They're not up for this sort of thing, being involved in lawsuits. So, I don't know. What's interesting, Ed Sheeran was in that movie. The one, was it called Yesterday? It had to do with the guy who... He wakes up in a world where nobody remembers the Beatles. Nobody even knows who the Beatles are. And this guy meets Ed Sheeran, and Ed Sheeran's hearing this guy play songs like Yesterday and, Blackbird Singing in the Dead of Night and all these other Beatles songs, and, Let It Be. And Ed Sheeran's just blown away. Like, how can you be writing these songs? And it turns out that the guy was just plagiarizing. He had heard this music before, but he was living in a world where everybody had been retconned, had amnesia, had their memories wiped. So now Ed's in his own little plagiarism world. But is it really? You can tell me. Call me at my number 510-228-4640. And with more ways to reach me, it's A-Frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Email Mike now at MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!